Perfect. So I'm going to start. I'm going to start by introducing myself. My name is Marie-Cecile, and I'm a community education coordinator from the Kent region. Before we start into the presentation, I just want to let you know that I am from a rural area, so sometimes my internet may lag. So if there's anything that you don't understand, don't hesitate to send me a message in the chat, but it's never happened before where I lost the presentation. So I'll repeat myself if I see that I'm lagging. Before we start, I just want to encourage everyone to go visit our YouTube page. All the webinars that we do are usually posted on our YouTube page. And don't forget to subscribe. That way you'll get a notice each time we put some new webinars. So for the YouTube page, you can search CMHA of New Brunswick. Also, we have a Facebook page, Canadian Mental Health of New Brunswick. And we encourage you to go like our page. There is a lot of information on our page about our webinars. And we also have our webpage, cmhanb.ca, that has all the information on the webinars. So also before I begin, I just want to let you guys know that at the end, there's a little survey, and we would really appreciate if you guys would fill in the survey. That way we know if we did a good job, and also what you guys would be interested in what kind of webinars, or we want to know the public's opinion or suggestions. So, but before that the survey comes up, I have to get out of my screen. I have to leave the meeting, and then you guys will see the survey. All right, so just gonna take a minute to start here. All right, so welcome to Nurturing Self-Esteem in Children. Canadian Mental Health Association was founded about 100 years ago in 1918, and it's a national charity that helps maintain and improve mental health for all Canadians. As a nationwide leader and champion for mental health, CMHA helps people access the community resources they need to build resilience and support recovery from mental illness. So that's a little bit about us. We have about 18 locations provincially. There's offices in Fredericton, Moncton, and St. John. And then we have a community education coordinator programs in each zones. So I see that my internet connection is a bit unstable. All right, sorry about that. So community education coordinator. So for myself, I'm an a community education coordinator in Kent County. So I cover all of Kent County and Shediac, but there's also some in Marie-Cecile, Westmoreland, Albert, Sussex. So we are all through the province. There's also the program called Peer Support Program, and that's provincial. And we have an employment program called Working Stronger Together in Charlotte County. So that's a little bit about us for the Canadian Mental Health Association. So to start, why is self-esteem so important? So people with positive self-esteem tend to have happier, more productive lives. So we also hear about self-esteem, and we hear about how the child's well-being is important, because our self-esteem has a big impact on just about every aspect in our life. So when aspect of learning, relationships, health, career, and overall uh, life satisfactions. So where does self-esteem comes from? Well, self-esteem might can come from people, characters, skills, abilities, and accomplishment. And I'm going to go through those a little bit more in detail. So when a child is born, when they are infant, a child's self-esteem begins from the development through their parents' nurturing. So when I say parents, it can be mom, dad, mom, father, or anyone significant in the child's life. The affection and care parents give them tells the baby you're lovable. So they are telling them you are lovable, you're important because you are you. So all the cute little things that we say to infants when they are born, right? So the unconditional love provides the foundation of the child's self-esteem. But the self-esteem doesn't only come from there. It also comes from our living our lives. So that's why you can't give children high self-esteem just by saying things like there's nobody else exactly like you or you're special. Building self-esteem is not as simple as that. As child become more independent and move out into the world, their feedback from others, a sense of competence, it is increasingly important for their self-esteem. So where does a sense of competence come from? So for most people, it comes from their area. So like people, most of our life, work, play groups, if they go into play groups as children. So being able to deal with people effectively, getting along, when they're kids, they learn to get along, feeling accepted, sorry, enjoying good relationships and friendships are important human skills. When it comes to character, all the positive values that they learn, the positive values, the qualities that they adopt, such as kindness, integrity, honesty, and that can also become enduring source of self-esteem. So these qualities allows us to feel more like a good person. And then there's skills, abilities, and accomplishment. We all need to be good at learning tasks necessary to have a productive, happy life. So such as looking after ourselves or taking care of ourselves, knowing about our world, being good at our job, and having skills such as athleticism. I can't say that word. Athleticism, musical, and artistic. So that's all important things when it comes to helping our self-esteem. So self-esteem in children. As children grow up, their self-esteem is in constant state of development. They all have it at different levels for different reasons. So self-esteem is not something that you get and you get to keep for all your life. So self-esteem for adults, just like children, changes at different times. So as children grow up, their self-esteem is in constant state of development. So child's self-esteem isn't a single thing that he either has good self-esteem or doesn't have good self-esteem. It may be up one day on the basketball field, so if they're super good on the basketball field and they're doing scores often, their self-esteem might be up because they are good at what they are doing. Or pageant, or different things that kids are skillful at. But sometimes maybe their self-esteem is not doing so well in science class, let's say, if they are having more trouble in science. So it's almost like a high and low. Okay. They may be strong in self-esteem also around 9, 10. They might have good self-esteem. But then they hit their teenage years, early teen years, and they might lose their self-esteem. So it's always different. And us, for parents, it's a struggle, right? Watching our children's self-esteem go up and down and not knowing the best way to nurture it. All right, just 1 second. I'm just going to put the chat just in case there would be perfect. Sorry about that. Perfect. So, uh, developmental stage. So, we're just going to look at the developmental stage. As a parent's role in fostering good self-esteem, self-esteem changes as children go through various stages of development, and we're going to review those stages. So, as a baby, it's fairly simple. Self-esteem is all about trust and unconditional love. As a newborn, they don't have a sense of who they are. They learn about themselves from us, the parents, through our interaction with them. And also, not only the parents, but any caregivers or people that are close to the child. So it could be grandma, grandpa, auntie, close friends. So they learn all their skills from those important people in their lives. And then, as a young child, if we think young child, excuse me, toddler, they will continue to depend on our feedback as caregivers for a sense of self-worth. So the toddler believes he is the center of the universe, as every milestone they achieve is a wonder to mom and dad. They believe themselves to be someone worthwhile. So if we think especially in the first 2 years of life, there's a lot of milestone that goes on. The first mile, oh my God, they smiled. And the first step, the first time they, I guess the first time they crawl, then the first step. So we give a lot of encouragement for those milestones that they achieve. So that makes them believe that they are someone very worthwhile. So their self-esteem is better. So as the child grows into toddlers and preschool, we still love them unconditionally, but then we expect more of them. We expect them to learn new skills and begin to behave certain ways. So when they do something that we approve or that we don't, and when they don't, we may show disapproval. So when they do something that we approve, we'll show more approval. And when they show something that we don't approve, we'll show them more disapproval, either by discipline or tell them, no, no, don't go there. They learn that some of the self-esteem that mom and dad have for them is earned. And then we go through the school age child. So when it comes to the school age child, as a school age child, they are exposed to a much larger world. So there's not only the caregivers, but there's also the friends and other people coming into their lives. And also as a young child, I forgot to say, if especially if they go to daycare, that's a whole new world to them also. There's not only the caregiver as parents, but also the caregivers as the people that take care of the child at the daycare. So at school, they are exposed to a much larger world, and their expectations on them, such as learning new skills and behaving in certain ways. Also, they now face being evaluated by teachers and other children around them. So they start to compare at this age, compare themselves to other children and evaluate themselves. So at the school age, they now see that mom and dad's opinion is not the only thing that matters anymore. So not only mom and dad's opinion, but the teacher's opinion and other staff in the school's opinion. And what for them at that age, it's very important what the other children around their age opinion, right? So this is when self-esteem and our role in it becomes more complex. We need to help children begin to develop an inner self-esteem that will help them deal with criticism, failure, and disappointment, as well as success and approval. And so how do we know if our child has a low self-esteem? So there's no quick way or easy way to tell if a child, if our child has a good self-esteem that is low enough to be a problem. However, here are a few things to think about. So what's important is not to jump to catastrophic conclusion. So remember that the self-esteem fluctuates through childhood and can temporarily dip when children move into a new developmental phases or a new situation. Transition can be difficult for our children. So just to give you an example, a few years ago, my child would have been around 10, and she had a super good self-esteem. But during the summer, we had to move, and unfortunately, my children had to switch schools. So coming to another school, my child that was 10 at the time she's a kind of a timid child, so her self-esteem went lower. So that's something we had to work on. But every child's different. My 11-year-old, I have two children that's very close in age. My 11-year-old that also had to change schools, she had a good self-esteem at her old school, and coming into her new school, her self-esteem just, I don't know if you can say rise even more. She became like a little flower that flourished and found other stuff that she liked and discovered herself even more. So it's just to show you an example that self-esteem can change depending on situation and also their developmental stages that they do. So for the second one, we have to see if it's a global problem or is it just a situational problem. So if a child's problem seems to be only in one area, maybe like school or an activity, it's worth investigating to see if there's a specific problem that could be resolved. If it's a problem that seems to be in a particular activity, we can consider taking the child out of the activity. So again, for another example, if the child is not doing well in school, it's important to investigate maybe the problem. It's not always as easy as just taking the child out. But if we put our child, let's say we are super good in baton twirling, and that's a big passion of the parents. Some parents will put their child in certain activities that they themselves really enjoy or were good at, and maybe the child does not like that, and they're not as good as others because they might not be talented in twirling, and their self-esteem goes low. And you have a conversation with your child and the child doesn't like that sport. That's the time to take maybe that child out of the sport and see evaluate what else that she would be liking. Maybe it's riding horses, equitation that she likes. So it's really to have the conversation with the child, what they like and not like, to help with their self-esteem. So also, note situation where your child feels good about themselves. Make sure she gets many chances to be in those situations. So if the child enjoys singing, maybe encourage her to join the school choir. So I just have a question. How do you prevent the child becoming reliant on approval and leading to unstable self-esteem? What I'm going to do with the questions, I forgot to tell you guys at the beginning, I'm going to answer the questions at the end of the presentation so I can continue with the presentations. But if you guys have questions, you can put them in the chat or the question and answer, and at the end, I will answer them. Okay? Also, remember that positive relationship with your child is more important than ever right now. And be patient and have courage. Children are more resilient than we sometimes think. And good self-esteem is built up gradually and not quickly. And it's true, children are very resilient. Okay? Sometimes we think that if they go through a certain situation, we almost want to bubble them up. But they are very resilient. They learn about obstacles and situations. So don't be afraid to seek help if the situation persists and gets worse. So if you guys see that the situation gets worse or persists, then don't be afraid to seek help. And if you're wrong and things are fine, then you can relax. And if your child does need help, you'll know that you did a good job. So when we say needs help, maybe it's just talking to a professional about their self-esteem and giving them techniques to increase their self-esteem. So as parents, where do we fit in? That's always, when you're parents, you're always thinking about that. So parents do play a very important role as their child develops self-esteem, but we should realize that parents cannot control all factors that influences self-esteem. All these are good tools for building children's self-esteem. So what we can do is we can show it, just 1 second. There we go. We can show them that we always love, value, and respect them as people. And even when we do not always approve of their behavior, we can communicate with them respectively and positively. It's important to have good communication with the children. I find talking to your children and asking their opinions and all that is very important. And then they value themselves as a little person also, right? We can work to maintain a close relationship with them as they grow older. And we can treat each of our children as individuals and avoid comparing them to each other. That's a very important one because they are all unique and they are all little individuals. And it's important not to compare them to each other. We can encourage them to improve their skills and develop new ones. We can teach them to value effort, learning, how to solve problems, and how to deal with frustration without hurting themselves or others. We can also teach them to learn from their mistakes. It's very important. Again, sometimes we want to bubble them up, right? Or protect them. But the children needs to learn by their mistake. And yes, I do understand if it's very, if it's a situation, a very bad situation, then we have to protect them. But we have to go with our instincts. We can communicate and model the importance of values like kindness and helping others and making a contribution. So it's important that we as parents or as caregivers that we show that we are kind and we help others and make a contribution. We can encourage the children, and by doing that, that helps the children with their just be increase their self-esteem. We can give them age-appropriate responsibilities and opportunities to make their own decisions, so they can see how their own choice and efforts can make a difference. And also we show them by example how adults with healthy self-esteem acts. So for communication skills for fostering self-esteem, it's important to stay connected. And so positive communication is much more than just telling our child that we love them or that we think they are great. It's what we do as well as what we say, how we spend time together, how we discipline, how we support our kids in good times and bad, and all of these have an effect on their self-esteem. So by staying connected, the dependence that our babies and toddlers have on us is building a way to foster a close relationship. So as they start spending more time away from the parents, like at school or friends, it may seem that we are less important to them. And then it will take a conscious effort to maintain that connection. The parent-child relationship is still an anchor that secures the child's self-esteem. Staying connected before be aware of the child's feelings and understanding how children feel about themselves is central to their self-esteem. So this is just to say that the older the child gets, especially in their teens, sometimes they want to not really, they talk less to their parents. But it's important, us as caregivers or as parents, to stay connected with the child, to ask them their opinion on certain stuff. And if we need to discipline them, to explain why we are disciplining them. It's also important to look at for little ways to stay in touch at key point during the day. So perhaps maybe doing some activities at during the day or before bedtime are great starting places. And we need to remember our children as they grow, as they are right now. So maybe just in the morning to say them good morning, at night say good night. And I know I tell my children that I love them every night. I have a 19-year-old and I still tell him good night, love you. Sometimes he might not answer me back, but at least he knows. And for connections, also just a little touch on the shoulder or a hug once in a while. Or I like to hug every day, but sometimes when the kids are older, they like it less. But they see that you're still interested in them and that you want to stay connected. So helpful feedback. Parents give their children lots of feedback. So we give them advice, instructions, praise, and criticism. Feedback can help youngsters see that they are good at and also how to improve. However, some kinds of praise and criticism are more helpful than others to children's self-esteem. So just to give you a few examples, consider this comment. So, you were such a good boy at the store. I love you. So it's nice to tell our children that we love them, but we don't want to give the message that we love them only because of good things that they do. They need to know that we love them always. And while it's important to notice and appreciate our children's positive actions, good boy doesn't really tell a child much. When we give specific feedback. So for an example, Marla, I saw what happened in the front yard when those girls were calling Kaylee names. I was really proud of the way you told them to leave her alone, and they stopped. If you hadn't have done that, Kaylee would have felt even worse. It's not easy to stand up to other kids like that to help your friend. It takes courage and admire that. So it really shows that you care for the child, okay? And it really shows, tells them that you love them and give them good feedbacks. The next one, dealing with frustrations. When we see our children frustrated or upset, we get frustrated ourselves and want to fix things as quickly as possible. Like we want to talk them out of feeling bad. We don't like it when our children's feelings are uh, upset or mad or frustration. That's a natural thing for a parent. But it can backfire and sometimes they feel worse because we are mad at them. So what children need to learn is that frustration is a normal part of learning and that we can help them deal with it. We can't take away all the obstacles, nor should we. As learning how to overcome obstacles is very important to the development of self-esteem. So we can help them by showing them that we understand and accept how they feel, that we know that they will feel better later. Even if they don't see it at the moment, they will feel better later. And that we are there to help when they are ready to talk about how to overcome their problems. And another way is that we believe that they will eventually be able to overcome their problems. So again, lots of communication. Uh, Helping children self-evaluate. As children reach school age and begin to evaluate themselves, sometimes they can be a little hard on themselves. They assess themselves against other children around them. So for example, they may make a sweeping negative conclusion about themselves when the real issue is a specific problem we can help them to identify. So when a child declares, I'm not good at, so if they are having trouble with their academics because they might have learning problems and they see everyone struggling less with their academics, that can be hard on them. And this, like I said, they self-evaluate. So it seldom helps to contradict him. If you can help him make a more realistic assessment of both his trouble areas and his strengths, it will turn overwhelming problem into something more manageable. Uh, for the next one, you're the model. It's very important as caregivers and as parents to model good behaviors, right? Children, no matter what age, are looking at us. We are their role models. Even if we don't think that they are watching us, they are watching us every little step. So it's important to be good role models. For the next one is discipline and self-esteem. So when it comes to discipline and self-esteem, it's important to discipline our child and explain them the reason of their behavior. So let's say that they are, I always tell my children, if you do something that you are in the wrong, don't lie about it. Because if I find out, maybe I'm not going to discipline as much as if I found out that you lie about it, the situation. Another example, if the child is throwing rocks and we give them a discipline, so we have to discuss with the child why it's not good to throw rocks, right? So one, we don't want to show the others that if we let the child throw rocks, maybe every children will start throwing rocks. Another thing why we don't throw rocks is because the child can get hurt, right? So by doing that, that helps also with the child. They know their limits, and it can help with their self-esteem. For the last thing is we have to remember that nobody's perfect. That's very important. Everybody is unique and we all make mistakes as children, as adults, as everyone. So your child in the world. So there's not only us as parents that is a good influence on the child, there's other people. Oh, just 1 second. So provide positive coping skills at an early age. Absolutely. It's important to provide positive coping skills at an early age. Thank you, Tanner. And the earlier they learn, the earlier they can put it into practice. That's absolutely right. Thank you. So your child in the world. So they also learn about friends. Friends are important to everyone. And with different stages in the child's life, friends are even more important. And every child is different. Like I said, I have 2 girls. I have one child that her world is her friends. And I have another child that her family is her world, or her world is her family. So every child is different. So friends are important to everyone. Children want to know that they can make friends, be friends, and that other children will like them. So when children find it hard to make friends, or when they have trouble getting along with their friends, their self-esteem can be affected. And friendship difficulties can happen for different reasons, right? So it could be the shy child. One reason children have trouble making friends is shyness. They are not joiners and they feel anxious in school situation, which understandably makes it harder to have friends, to make friends. So is shyness related to low self-esteem? Well, it can be, but children can also feel just fine about themselves, especially if their quieter style is accepted by parents, teachers, and that they have 1 or 2 friends. So you can have the very shy child, and as long as they feel accepted from the parents and the teacher, maybe they're okay with that, and their self-esteem can be okay. So, but how can we help the shy child? So don't remind the child that they're shy. They actually already know. We have to, as the parent or caregiver, we have to accept the child's shyness. Um, Shyness is largely a temperamental trait, and in other words, some people are born that way. Help behind the scenes. So kids may need extra help to set up play dates. So we can set up play dates at home because that's their comfort zone, and get together with their friends. For example, your child might feel more confident about inviting new friends over if you help them plan something to do, like rent a video or an outing. So again, I'm putting this example to one of my child. My 12-year-old is a bit more shy than my butterfly child. That is not, she makes friends everywhere. But my shy child will have a harder time making friends. So the way that we encourage that, home is her comfort zone. So what we do is we invite friends over here instead of encouraging her to go to friends. We encourage her to invite them here. And sometimes when, even though she has friends at the house, uh, she doesn't know what to do with her friends. So before inviting friends, we discuss, and I have to give her suggestions to what to do with her friends. Uh, Also, it's important maybe to look at some organized group activities such as scouts, computer clubs, and for me, my child is in cadets, which really helped her to get out of her shell a little bit more. Some shy children are more comfortable in structured social situations. I know something that really helped my daughter, my shy daughter, in cadets was she learned how to, in the band, how to play a musical instrument, something that she had never tried before, and she's actually very good at it. So that really helped her self-esteem, and it's also helping with her shyness. I don't know if we can say shyness, but her being shy. Understand that your child may find a lot of satisfaction from solitary activities. Uh, Also, what else? Other barriers to trouble with friends. Sorry, I skipped one. Other barriers to friendship. So some children have trouble socially because of the way they behave. Children who are aggressive and who have difficulty sharing or playing fair often but understand how their behavior makes it hard for other children to like them. These children need to learn better social skills, but that kind of learning takes place gradually. So structured recreational activities can be helpful because they offer supervised social situations. Parents and teachers can also help these kids to see the other child's point of view. So if a child pushed another child, maybe we can say, how do you think Johnny felt when you pushed him? So try to ask the child what he thinks. When children have trouble making friends for any reason, their connection to us becomes all the more important. It shows them that there's at least one place where they are wanted and where they belong. For the next one, the trouble with friends. As much as we might like to pick the best and most appealing friends for our children, we can't control who they like and who likes them. Remember, too, that they are all kids, subject to the same imperfections, growing pains as our own children. Don't judge them too harshly. We do need to step in and protect our children if they are bullied or harassed, but there are many day-to-day ups and downs that children need to work out for themselves. So sometimes there's a lot of trouble with friends, but the children have to defend themselves to a certain point. If they are in danger, then we have to step in, that's for sure. Sometimes the best thing we can do is to listen without judgment and empathize with their feelings. The next one, kids and stress. We often think of stress as something negative, and we all know that stress can be negative, but there's also positive stress. Normal stress in it's part of life, and manageable stress can be positive motivator. So when a child does well in sports or enjoys watching a suspenseful movie, part of what makes the experience rewarding is the stress involved in the scary movie or the competition of the sports. As for activities, outside activities like sports, music lessons, recreational clubs, gives a child to gives a children to a chance to make new friends, learn new skills, and also have some fun. All these are very good for self-esteem. Activities and lessons can sometimes help the child find that one thing he can be good at or passionate about. Like I was saying, for my child, when she went into cadets, she discovered playing an instrument in the band, and that really helped her. So it's important to have children in different activities. There's also extended family. So parental love is number one with children, but the love and attention of other caring adults like grandparents, aunts, and uncles can be also very important. It's a little bit like having a self-esteem pool. If a few more people are helping to fill your child's pool, so much the better. So there's also other adults that can help with the child's self-esteem. Like coaches, teachers, camp counselors can also boost the child's self-esteem. I have for my child, my butterfly child, my child that's very social. She has a teacher that discovered that my child was a very, very good painter. She's an artist. So that teacher asked me the permission to bring her to art classes, painting classes. And I gave her permission, and that really helped with my child's self-esteem. So my child, or that teacher, is a very good influence to my child, and that really helped with her self-esteem, which is super good. And then for the last one, the life's highs and lows. So we know that self-esteem is a long-term process and does not depend on a single incident. However, certain events tend to stand out because temporarily, at least, they have very noticeable effect on the child's feelings of accomplishment and self-respect. Things like winning a competition or failing in grade school. It's wise to not make a big deal on these events, whether it's positive or negative. At the same time, let's not become too upset when something goes wrong or our child fails. Our children depend on our hopeful leadership, and we need to show them that is not the end of the world, that life goes on, and that we can still believe in them. So the relationships between self-esteem and school. School's a big part of our children's life. So we might say that relationship between school and self-esteem is a two-way street. Success at school, both academic and social, builds a child's self-esteem. So by the same token, children with positive self-esteem are more likely to thrive at school and become active learners. So how can we help them? So it's important, we're going to start with a positive learning environment. So when we can set the stage by creating a home environment that supports and values learning, that this begins very early in life. You were, as caregivers, as parents, you were the child's first teacher. We guided them, supported them, encouraged them as they were learning to walk, talk, catch a ball, do puzzles, color with crayons. And we explained things to them, showed them different part of their world, and read them stories. Even though if we have now sent them to school, and that you give some of your role to teachers, you can still continue to support your child's learning at home. We can show them interest in, it's important to show them interest in his education, in attending school. If we attend their school events, interacting with their teachers, so going to parent-teacher meeting, if they do a presentation like a science expo, a science fair in English. If they participate in science fair, to go watch them if you can. Providing suitable learning materials in the home and helping with homework. Research has shown that children do better when their parents are involved in their education. So we do build a positive learning environment when we show interest in their schoolwork. The next one, talking about school. So how can we have more meaningful conversation with our kids about school? Some suggestions. It's important to watch our timing. So if the child arrives from school and we ask them how school is, we have to keep in mind at that point that they might not want to talk about school right away. They might want a break. Just like us adults, if we arrive from home, sometimes if and our husband, wife asks us about work, we might not want to talk about work at the moment. Maybe we just want to decompress and relax a little bit and then talk about our work or how our day has been. Well, the children are the same. So maybe that we can have a conversation with the children at supper time or at before bedtime. Also, it's important to be specific. So instead of asking general questions, we can ask specific questions like, what did you do in phys eds? Did you give your speech today? Or did you do your test today? So ask for details. Some children, you have children that will give you a long story and other children that will just answer yes, no, and very briefly. So it's important to ask details. Questions that requires a one-word answer are not the best way to get a conversation going. It might help to try asking questions that requires more details. Talking about grades. How do we react towards good or poor grades? Again, a sensitive response will both nurture self-esteem, encouraging continued effort. If a child brings home a good report card and we say, "What a good girl," the hidden message is that her worth is our eyes depends on her marks in schools. However, if we praise her effort and accomplishment instead, it tells her that we admire her achievement, but also that being a good person does not depend on her report card. So even though they bring good grades or not good grades, they are still good children, right? Remember that some kids find schoolwork easy. Others have to work very hard just to achieve a passing grade. That's why it's important to focus on child's effort and progress and not just the grades. So if they worked very hard that year, I'm happy that you worked very hard this year. Ups and downs. We place a lot of importance on school, and rightly so. School is a very important time of their life, and we make a big deal out of it as parents. So it's a big part of the child's life and one key for his future success. But we need to remember that school isn't everything. It's not the only place that children learn and beyond negative experience at school. So sometimes you can have a bad year, a bad teacher. I shouldn't say a bad teacher, but a bad fit with a teacher. Won't ruin a child's life and his self-esteem. When parents communicate well with teachers, support learning in the home, children have the best chance to have positive educational experiences that contributes to their self-esteem. For the next one, when self-esteem is challenged by school experiences. That happens. There are certain experiences that can happen at school, like bullying, like not having a good fit with the teacher, We see that less and less, but before, like in my years, sometimes it happens. It does affect uh, self-esteem. So like any experiences in life, school is better experience for some children than others. So some children will have good experiences in school, and some others won't. So unfortunately, there are times when school experiences have a negative effect on the child's self-esteem. We can learn from failure, but constant failure is very discouraging. Success, on the other hand, boosts our child's self-esteem, and it inspires us to try hard to order to experience that success again. So children who are discouraged at school need opportunities for success, both within the classroom and outside the school. When problems at school are caused by either learning disabilities, or maybe the child has a attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, it's important to work with the appropriate professionals to ensure that your child gets the best possible assistance, support, and treatment. So it's very important to have conversation, and that goes into collaborating, our last word, collaborating with the schools. It's very important to talk to the teachers, talk to the school personnel to help the child. So to have good communication. Another thing that's very important is not to bash the school. So if we have something bad to say about a teacher or the school, it's important to not say it in front of the children. So always try to, even though it's hard sometimes, always be positive. And that is it for my presentation. And I'm gonna answer the questions. I'm just gonna take my PowerPoint off and go full screen. Give me a second. Okay, and I am going to answer questions. So how do you prevent the child becoming reliant on approval and leading to unstable self-esteem? I'm not sure if I understand your question very well. And Megan, if you want to help me, just you can join in. I have Megan also with me. I forgot to introduce her at the beginning. Megan is one of my coworkers from Moncton. So the first question, are you able to answer that question, Megan?
Prevent the child becoming reliant. I think it speaks to what you were saying earlier. I think you gave the example of grades. You were talking about how you don't want to say, oh, you did a good job, I love you, kind of thing.
Yes.
Like you can take the time to praise them, but not to say that the love is what would go away if you didn't approve of it. So I think indirectly you sort of spoke to it.
Great.
Yeah.
So does that answer your question? You can put yes or no in the chat if you want, or if you have any other, if you want more details, let us know. Okay, so what should you communicate to a child who is distraught about not being good at something they are passionate about? What I would communicate to that child is just to practice, practice, practice. And practice, they say practice makes perfect, but not to give up. That's what I would encourage that child. And sometimes maybe it's not their thing. I have a child that follows her. I have a child that does pageant and does very well in pageants, and the other one follows her big sister, and does less in pageants. She does pageants to be like her sister, but after a few pageants, I had to explain to, without winning, and we are not about winning. I had to explain to her that maybe it's not her thing, and to find something else that she might be passionate about. Or, yeah, hopefully that answers your question. I have a 5-year-old with autism who is extremely shy, even with me and his father at times. He will usually ask me to help him ask his father things, or he will talk very quietly when he asks me for things. And yes, it's sad when they are that shy. Um, and they feel comfortable. You are your child's comfort zone. Okay? They are comfortable coming to you. How should you talk to the child about poor grades? If the child has poor grades and you can see that the child does puts a lot of efforts and try their best, I would not encourage, but féliciter. I would give
Either
them good,
congratulate them or reassure them. Is that what you were trying
reassure
to
them.
say?
Yes, thank you. Reassure them
There you go.
about how they're working so hard at school, and that sometimes grades are. It's hard to have good grades and just a lot of reassurance. Hopefully that helps. I feel like my daughter is so afraid of failing that she won't try. This is something stemming from her father. He's gone now, but I have to deal with this fallout. I believe we learn from mistakes, and it's okay not to be perfect. How can I break this pattern? It's very tough. So I guess just continue encouraging your child and to I don't know. I guess it's late and I'm tired. I have a hard time talking tonight. To just reinforce that you love them, and even though that they feel no matter what that you love them, and encourage them to continue trying. And Megan, if you have anything else to add, feel free.
The as far as not wanting to try because they're going to fail, yeah, that's too bad. I think something that might be helpful is to start with small and easy things. Almost like your daughter doesn't even know she's challenging herself, and once that confidence is built, you can start doing more and more and more kind of thing, right? So
Absolutely.
start small.
That's a very good tip, and that reminds me also. It reminded me of something, and I totally forgot. Yeah, start with small things, and that builds confidence. Absolutely. And find her passion. What does she like also? And let her discover what she likes, and maybe she would try more. And positive feedback. Any other questions? Well, thank you. I'm hoping that it was very informative. That's great. Anything else? Any other questions? All right, so I'm just going to remind you guys that, there might be a question and answer right here. Oh, no. Okay, perfect. I'm just going to remind you guys that there is a questionnaire that we would appreciate that you guys would fill. So keep in mind that I have to leave and then the questionnaire should cut in. So I'm going to wish you a good rest of the evening and hopefully that you will join us on other webinars. Have a good evening and have a good rest of the week.